Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight into gymnastics at the college level. My guest today is Jeff Graber. He is the women's gymnastics coach at Auburn University, and welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So usually, Jeff, I usually start my guests where they went to college. So where'd you go to school?
University of Minnesota. I grew up in Minnesota and graduated from the University of Minnesota with an economics degree. So leads you directly into gymnastics coaching.
So let's just go back in high school before we get started where you are today. Um, in high school, when did it all start for you to go to college? Was it freshman year of high school, senior year? When did it all begin for you?
Oh, I went to Forest Lake High School, which is north of the University of Minnesota campus. It's a suburb of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And I was actually a wrestler. I did gymnastics and wrestling quite a bit, and among other sports. Back then, we all did all the sports, it seems, and not nearly as common anymore. But I would say I was looking at going to college for athletics. Back when I was in seventh, eighth, ninth grade. Really focused my junior year. I had to decide between gymnastics and wrestling. And so halfway through that December of my junior year in high school, really invested 100% into gymnastics. I was just in love with the sport at the time and really wanted to do it at the highest level. So I'll say this, I was not on the University of Minnesota gymnastics team. I my brother and I thought we wanted to go to Air Force Academy, and we went out there, made a visit, and went through a lot of the procedures to go there. But long story short, but the defense budgets were being cut in those years, the late '80s, and so went back to University of Minnesota, and that team was already set by the time we got back there. So got to know the guys, worked out with the team a little bit, but that's where I went into coaching. Ended up paying for school through coaching at that point.
Wow. So let's just go into the University of Minnesota first. So you get to school there. What's the school like? How did you like college in a nutshell?
Well, I first off, it was a pretty comfortable place for me to be. I grew up around the University of Minnesota, so it was always a place that I was intrigued with. You're a Minnesota kid, and that's where you want to go usually. But I grew up in a really small town. My family is originally from northern Minnesota, and we had very small town atmosphere. So, a Big Ten campus at University of Minnesota is like 50,000 people or something like that, and three campuses. And so I wanted something big. I wanted to get to be a part of something that it was exciting to be a part of a large campus. But so that's sort of the thought process. But it was also comfortable. I decided late to go to the University of Minnesota and was able to get in there. I drug my feet with making up my mind, thinking I wanted to do other things, and sometimes great decisions are made out of necessities.
Sure, absolutely. So now you graduate from University of Minnesota. How does one go from graduating there to becoming the head women's gymnastics coach at Auburn University?
Yeah, well, that it's not a direct line, I'll tell you that. That's for sure. But uh, I put myself through college. My brother and I both put ourselves. I have a twin brother who still owns a gym in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We put ourselves through college by coaching. We coached local high schools. I coached Hamlin University, and at one point during our college career, we actually opened up our own gym, and started from scratch basically. My brother and I co-owned it with another person, and then eventually it was just the two of us that owned it. So uh, I would say that necessity probably made that work. Once you own something, you're just fully invested in that, and it was a natural progression. I mean, I got an economics degree, but it's really a business degree. And in reality, we were business entrepreneurs, basically trying to create something. And that was one of our forays. We owned some rental properties, and we signed up for a lease on a 6,000 square foot gym, and started building a program that still exists to this day. So um, in that respect, Minnesota and that economics degree really helped build my business acumen. I really got to figure out how to make a business work. And long story short is we survived. So it was a successful business, which many cannot say. So I'm proud that gym still exists.
So did you just do that and go right to Auburn University?
Nope. I owned that gym for a while, all the way up until 2003. And in 2003, I actually in 2000 got married and had my first child, but married into a family with three children already. So I was on my fourth child, and some of those kids were older at that point. And uh, my brother and I were in this debate about whether we should open up another gym so we'd have two sites because we were growing quite aggressively, or should I get into college because I had older kids that probably would benefit from, if you're a college coach, you can get, tuition breaks and that type of
Yeah.
stuff. So did some math and decided I'm not sure I wanted to do a heavy lift of opening up a whole nother gym. And that's a lot of work, and I was going to miss the family a lot. So went into college, went to Utah State for 2 years. So moved to Logan, Utah, and then got lucky enough to get hired at University of Utah for 5 years, which is 10 national championships. It's a premier program in our sport. 15,000 people go to those meets there, so it's got to learn from the best. Greg Marsden is a legend in our sport, so I got to learn from him. So 7 years in Utah, and then I got lucky enough to get this job here at Auburn, and been here. I just finished my 15th year.
Wow, fantastic. So let's get into the coaching at Auburn University. How does one get and find women that are interested in going to uh, do gymnastics at the college level? What are you looking for in a young girl?
Well, I mean, skills first and foremost, talent. I mean, you're a talent evaluator, so you got to go out and try to get the most. I wouldn't say necessarily a talented athlete all around. There's a couple of ways that gymnastics recruits. You can recruit an all around four event person, somebody who does all four disciplines in our sport. That's called an all arounder. Or you can recruit event specialists, which would mean somebody's really good at the bars or the balance beam or something like that. So on a roster of roughly 20 athletes, you're going to have a mixture. You're going to have some all around athletes, and you're going to have some event specialists. So each year is its own entity. Each year we're trying to replace a certain number of routines and trying to gain a certain number of routines. So we're doing that, and some of that is uh, we need a certain number of all-around athletes, and we need a certain number of event specialists, and that really helps us target certain athletes, instead of other athletes. So even though you might be the best beam worker in the country, if we don't need a beam worker that year, we might be looking in a different direction. So, and I think every college has the same thought process, that you got to fill your needs first, and then you can fill your wants. So that's just the talent level of it.
Right.
The other end of the spectrum is we're building team culture at all these programs, and at Auburn, that's one of the things that's really important to us. So we're looking at hard workers, dedicated athletes, people who are coachable, people who are still improving, health of the athlete. All of those things are important for us. So we're looking at all of that. So when we're going into gyms and going to events to evaluate, that's high on our list, is team players, people who are coachable, people who are. Now what that coachable term is a couple of things. One, do you listen to your coach and can make changes? But two, if we see what they're trying to accomplish with you, are you able to make those changes? Are you patient in the process? Are you driven in the process? all of that stuff has to come into play because you're joining a family, and we need to know that the way our family operates and the way you operate are going to work well together.
So now you said evaluating the students. Are you evaluating these students at the high school level where they're on the high school team, or are they on an AAU type of gymnastics team outside the high school, or is it better to be just outside the high school? Where are you actually finding these students?
Yeah, great question. There are high school gymnastics programs, but generally speaking, the club program, which used to be AAU, now is USA Gymnastics. Though that's where we're recruiting. We're going to local clubs and basically all throughout the country, and trying to evaluate and recruit people from those clubs. So the high school is somewhat important, but it's more the club that we're dealing with at this point. And I would say that's actually bled into a lot of sports.
Mhm.
The club programs are becoming more influential. When I was a wrestler, high school and club were both sort of equal. You could They were different, but they were sort of equal, and now the clubs have really just taken over. So yeah, and that's year round. So we're in year round recruiting, not just during the season, during high school season or something like that.
So now, as a freshman girl coming to Auburn University, can you give me a sense of when I show up, what's the whole year going to be like? Do I show up in August? Do I show up in September? Is there fall workouts, spring? How does it all work? Give me a whole year's worth of what that freshman is going to go through.
Generally speaking, you're going to show up for the month of July in what's called our second mini semester of summer school. It helps you acclimate to to school without jumping right in the fall. So there are some exceptions. If you are training for USA championships or for a world championship event, or an Olympic trials or something like that, you obviously would not come in the summer. You would be training still with your club and trying to go that route to either the Olympic trials or world championship selection camp, those type of things. But generally speaking, you're going to show up in July and do about a 4.5, 5 week summer school segment. It's basically, just think of it as the month of July.
Mhm.
Then 2 weeks off for our campus. You get 2 weeks off, the first 2 weeks in August, and we generally start fall classes around the August 15th time slot. And when you get here, you're going to do a month of strength conditioning training, which is required, and then the rest of it's basically open gym. Just think of it more as captain's practice. So you're here and you're trying to learn, what the workouts look like, and your teammates are helping you acclimate to it. The coaches can coach, but what we can't do is require a lot of that gymnastics at that point. You're allowed to require 8 hours of strength conditioning and gymnastics training in that first month. And then after that, you're on normal 20-hour a week training regimen throughout, all the way through April, which is NCAA championships.
Wow, so it goes all the way from the beginning of the fall all the way through April is basically the gymnastics period.
Yep. Basically, your time off would be the last couple of weeks of April and the month of May, and then you're starting to gear back up so that you're ready to go at the end of June, early July, to start this whole thing over again.
Wow, fantastic. So now, what are some of the the events that are part of gymnastics? Can you give a sense of what are the events that everyone has to do?
Yeah, so we have four events for women, and that's vault bars, beam, and floor. So there, break it up into two disciplines. We could say it's three total. You're either an all-arounder, which means you're pretty good at all four events. You are a power athlete or a technical athlete, and the power athlete is more um, referred to as the leg events, vault and floor. You're more of that type, or you're a technical gymnast, which is Bars and beam is a little bit more technical and it doesn't require as much power. So some athletes are just much more suited for that. Many athletes are going to train them all. Gymnasts train all four events. It's just where's your strength? Where are you best? And so in our avenue, we're trying to actually all 20 of our athletes that are gymnasts on the team, we would love to have to train all four events because depth is important. When you're
Sure.
when you're training that long, our season is that long. And when we compete, we're competing every Friday night. Sometimes we're competing two times in 1 week from January all the way through April. You're going to need everybody on that team. So you probably want everybody to train every event.
So now, has NIL infiltrated the gymnastics world as well as all the other sports going on in college?
Yeah. Fortunately and unfortunately, it's infiltrated it. There's some real positives to it. Suni Lee was here for 2 years with us and would not have been here without NIL. So the Olympic gold medalist doesn't go to college for free, and because they're making a lot of money on their own, so it has to be a benefit to them to go to college. So I think a lot of programs and a lot of the gymnastics community benefited from Jade Carey, you know uh, Jordan Childs, Suni Lee, those people going to college.
Right.
So it's been a real positive, but there's been a lot of adaptation in our sport, just like in UC and NCAA football and basketball. The transfer portal, NIL, the collectives with revenue sharing coming up here, all of that stuff is infiltrating every area of NCAA athletics.
So now a big question from parents is usually it's all about the sport and not about academics. What's your take on what you do at Auburn?
Well, I mean, we're a little bit different. Our sport's a little bit different. And here at Auburn, I mean, we talk to our athletes a lot about this. You don't go pro in gymnastics. You actually graduate and use your degree. So that's the priority here. You are a student athlete here, and we've graduated quite a few aerospace engineers, mechanical engineers, business majors, nurses, doctors. It is a priority here to actually get your degree and to do something with it. So um, we like to be the best at both. We like to give you opportunities to win national championships and SEC championships at the same time as send you on your way really well equipped to go conquer the world.
Now, what does Auburn do financially for these students? Is it all scholarship? Is it just scholarship at NIL money? Is it a little bit of a lot of different things? Can you give a sense of what the student's going to go through?
Well, what has been happening is full scholarships. We For years we've been a head count sport, which means if you're on a scholarship, everything's getting paid for, room and board, tuition, all of that type of stuff. With the new settlement that isn't quite done yet, the House versus NCAA settlement that probably is going to come to fruition here pretty soon, all of that is going to change. Some of that for the better. We're going to be able to break up some scholarships and give and spread the money out more equally through everybody. There probably are going to be more scholarships to go around, at least in some of the well-funded programs, which we are. And then there's also the option for revenue sharing and NIL at the same time. What nobody knows is what that looks like right now, because without it being signed, nobody can actually implement anything. So the future is really very much in flux at this point. Um, definitely we take care of our athletes. We pay for their schooling, and right now that's the model we're still operating under and trying to adapt to this new reality.
Okay. Well, we're coming to the end of our show, and usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to the parents and the students that are watching this? What advice do you want to give them?
Well, we talk about this a lot in the recruiting phase of it. You gotta feel it. You gotta listen to your heart, and because most of the time you're hearing all the same stuff. Everything starts to look alike when you're being recruited. So go farther back and go into the reason you started the sport, and the reason you started any sport, but definitely I know gymnastics is, you just loved some of the control you had over your development. It is a sport that's very individualized. You loved the sport itself because you were able to conquer things, you were able to learn from developing through the sport. So there was this love, this inherent joy with the sport. So when you're going through the process and starting to look at colleges and that type of stuff, don't get distracted by what people have or what you might get. And I think to me, I've had some of my own kids go through the process, my own children, and that's one of the things I've tried to remind them is, you got to be happy where you are. So you got to make choices with your heart and your head. Don't let the head take too much control, because you start to get distracted with all the bells and whistles. Don't get trapped that you don't enjoy the process once you're in it. So yeah, biggest hint would be make sure that the heart is involved in the decision.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's been great to be here.
Yeah. So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.